Hello. So there's been some new celebrity brands popping up, and I've got beef. Not in the ways that you may think, but regardless, the beef wanders free range. Okay, there's a few different things. I mean, first of all, I think most of us are just experiencing some level of kind of fatigue that's not necessarily just because of celebrity brands, but because of like just this overwhelming messaging of like, you need this, you know? I have two main issues. The first is that so many of these brands are just like uninspired, uninventive, and I will bitch about that at length shortly. And then the other issue is how it impacts small businesses, and then I will bitch about that at length. So if that sounds like just a barrel of laughs to you, then let's spend this time together. So I mean, first and foremost, I'm sure that I bitched about this probably specifically with either the Kardashians or REM, but like, packaging is important to me, okay? Reason being, I feel like the industry is obviously so wildly oversaturated. I'm just fully facing away from the mic, which like, to me, just to be clear, it's not necessary. I don't actually have an issue with celebrities launching brands in that I think the more selection, the better. Like, great. I think that there's still a lot of different pockets in the beauty industry that exist, especially when it comes to things like inclusivity and stuff like that. And I think that celebrity brands oftentimes have the money to be able to do that really well. But I do think that like this oversaturation has kind of led to the average person having like a lot of makeup, where when I first started using makeup kind of like around maybe like grade 10, I had, you know, like a very select little, I had way more makeup than most of my friends, but like I still had like a very select little collection of makeup because like it just wasn't as common to have these like huge collections back in my day, and there also wasn't quite as much accessibility, number one, but also just option in general. So more and more people have, you know, these larger collections, and for me what that's resulted in is buying at pretty much the same rate but using way less of it. The reason why packaging has become more and more important to me over time, I mean, I always really enjoyed like visually, you know, looking at beautiful packaging. And then I started to really enjoy the experience of like opening up like a really nice box and pulling out like a really beautiful, like heavy, luxurious component. You know what I mean? Like that was always something that was exciting to me. But what I've also noticed is that over time, that actually made me value that product more in a way that I would reach for it and be more likely to use it. So while I love really high performing formulas, I do think that in general, we're at a place in makeup where so many formulas are high performing. Like whether it's a brand like e.l.f. or, you know, Tom Ford or ColourPop or what, like anyone in between, it's like generally speaking, the performance of makeup has gone from like here and sometimes here to like basically everything is just like up here, and then there's some products that really outperform, but like in general it's hard to find a product that's like actually just garbage these days, whereas like truly back in the day I feel so old, but it's like chalk, like literal dust in a pan. Like makeup used to be so bad. Honestly, the youths, you don't understand. You may have heard your elders at some point speaking about Maybelline Dream Matte Mousse. The truly global trauma that we all experienced at one time. They will write about it in history books. I have no doubt about that in my mind. So this is where I personally take a little bit of beef with just a tiny bit with celebrity brands, because it's like these are the people that have all the fucking money in the world to do it so right in every way, and then again and again they just don't. Kim coming out with skin, thank God, you know what I mean? Like at least, fine if you don't want to use it, fine if she has her own blunders and stuff like that, she's fucking whatever, but like to me, like the branding of that brand was actually in line with Kim Kardashian. Like it looks like her house, you know what I mean? So to me, I was like, yes, like this is what I was wanting to see, you know? One celebrity brand that I have like the biggest beef with, because it's just like, where the fuck did this come from? And I've seen fans being like, well, if you know her, like, you know that this isn't like, no, you're fucking lying to yourself, bruh. REM, the most boring ass fucking 90s Apple computer. What the fuck? No shade. But like, I just, okay, when she announced that name, I was like, oh my, the visuals of this are going to be unreal. Like, I was picturing very like her Met Gala dress, all dreamy, like beautiful, like ethereal, you know what I mean? Like, I was picturing such a different thing visually. And then it was like, sure, space, but like, let's keep it industrial. Let's keep it like space, but not like, oh, like I wonder what's out there, dream-like space, like galaxies, beautiful. Like, no, like, let's get the job done. We've got to put one man on the moon and we're going to do it in a bucket of tin. That's what it's giving me. It just kills me. And to me, I think that's what really, really adds to this feeling that the celebrity like isn't involved at all. So it just ends up being like a little bit disappointing. So then you're just kind of like dismayed. I'm going off on so many fucking tangents in my head. When I started really getting into makeup, it was because of the artistry. Like, that was to me, and still to this day, it's like seeing people be truly inventive with makeup, not in like a like clickbait, try this hat kind of way, but just like, you understand makeup, you understand formulas and just products and tools and all that kind of stuff, and you are creative with that, and it's like your art form. Like, to me, like, that is just like, I love it. Like, it like makes me feel some type of way inside my body. And so I think because of that, it's like I have this yearning to see art really expressed through product development as well. Like, I don't necessarily want to see, you know, models just like put on a blank backdrop and photographed looking like Instagram glam. It's like, that's an aesthetic. I'm not against it. This isn't like shade. It's just that, like, if that's your brand, you know, theme or whatever, great. But there's so many, it's like REM, it's like, obviously that's not what you were trying to do. You know what I mean? Like, you were trying to go somewhere kind of different with the branding. So it's like, why didn't you just go all the way? And I don't know, maybe I'm fucking delusional. Maybe that is like so perfectly in line with Ariana and how she fucking goes about shit. That's a possibility. Maybe you're not lying to yourself. Who knows? Which, like, it's like, I'm not saying that, you know, this celebrity has to be like the creative mind behind it all, but it's like, you have money to hire the creative mind behind it all. I thought about doing a video. I might have already pitched this to you guys. I can't remember. Everything's a blur. But I thought about doing a video like what I wish REM was, and like talking about like what I wish kind of the packaging looked like, or what I wish, like what products I wish they came out with first, all that kind of stuff. So if you'd be interested, let me know. Will I end up doing it? Your guess is as good as mine. But here's my other beef, okay? When celebrity brands just like pop up, even though people know it's backed by a celebrity, I think that it just continues to lend to this absolutely crippling idea of like what a business should look like, even if they're brand new. This is a personal, just like petty bitch, okay? There's a number of reasons why it's difficult to be a small business. There's a number of reasons why I enjoy being a small business. But I think one of the most difficult things for me, at least, is trying to meet customers' expectations when we are in the age of things like Amazon. Because obviously in the areas where Amazon's available, the majority of people will have, at least at one time, if not frequently, have used Amazon. So it's like you become used to what that looks like how seamless the ordering is potentially. I mean, I don't really feel that way about Amazon. I loathe shopping on Amazon, truly. Like, I just feel like the whole experience start to finish is the worst, but that's fine anyways. I get that it's like a convenient thing. You know, the things like Prime and like free shipping and all that kind of stuff, and how quickly even things ship and how easy things are to return and all of that. It's like, that's what makes it a convenient service, you know? I feel like there's kind of this idea of like, yeah, support small business, support local. But then there's like a complete misunderstanding around how truly different it is supporting local and small businesses and stuff like that. And these conversations might not seem correlated, and it's a stretch, but it's just what it makes me think of. And I don't want this to come across like you should support small business instead. No. If you choose to support small businesses, I feel like having a different expectation is always helpful for that business. A small business can pop up where, like, let's say it's somebody hand making cosmetics, and you know, they do small batches and all that kind of stuff, and it's just them working for themselves, or maybe they have one other person that helps them or something. But it's like, let's say they pop up at the same time that REM pops up. You know, it's like they're both new businesses. And so as much as, again, I think there's obviously that thing in your mind that's like, oh yeah, that's by, you know, Ariana Grande. This is by somebody who's like hand making these cosmetics and they're like a small business. Like, I think that differentiation comes to mind at first, but then I think thereafter, so many people don't understand what that's actually going to look like, because small businesses, oftentimes, I don't want to like generalize, but so often it's a lot harder for small businesses to do things like fast restocking, fast shipping, cheap or free shipping. And I think that that's because, you know, we've become really used to, especially in America. I mean, this is not so much the case for a lot of other places, because for me in Canada, like, you know, our shipping costs continue to be fairly high, depending on like the situation. Like, if you're buying through a Sephora, a lot of the times it won't be as expensive because they have like actual warehouses in Canada. So that usually cuts down on costs a fair amount. But again, obviously Sephora isn't a small business. Oh, just Sephora. It's like, Sephora is this underground, I don't know if you would have heard of it. They're like a makeup company. And I think even in that vein, actually, I will mention, a lot of people have, you know, like, I can say for my business, a lot of people have been like, have you thought about, you know, selling through wherever, like this online retailer, or, you know, a Sephora or an Ulta, stuff like that, which is like, first of all, like, I don't think they care about me or even know about me. But secondly, I've mentioned this a few different times in different places. It's not uncommon for various retailers to take over 50% of profit, which, depending on your profit margin, usually would absolutely destroy a small business. And still, even though I know that, I will also find myself at checkout being like, really? They're not gonna give me free shipping when I'm spending like $120? Really? Because it is so ingrained in us to have an expectation based on what most businesses are able to offer. And most businesses, unfortunately, aren't small businesses. And so again, it's like, that kind of is like, I do really enjoy having more options in the industry. Like, I think it's fun, and I think it's exciting to see what people come out with, and it's exciting to me to see how people market it differently. Like, all of that is like a fun part of the beauty industry to me. But I do notice the way in which that changes overall, like, consumers' thought process around what ordering and shipping and returns and all those things should look like. And rightfully so. Like, if it's too expensive for you to ship something to your house, and you're paying, you know, more in shipping than you would like to, and then potentially paying duties and stuff like that, like, it's totally understandable that that would deter you from shopping from certain businesses. But I think for me, it's like, that's where I more so am a little bit dismayed by how much the industry is becoming more and more saturated with these like larger celebrity supported brands, because they are much more likely to have not only the funding, but the infrastructure to keep up those expectations. And actually, that kind of like brings to my, well, am I going to wrap this into this conversation We're getting very off track. I think I will. Okay. When it comes to marketing, like I'm thinking about how in general, like most people would say they like to support small businesses, or they think that that's like the better option and stuff like that, or like local businesses or whatever it may be. And like not just in beauty, but like in food products and clothing and all that kind of stuff. You know, like most people would prefer that their clothes are like made, you know, nearby kind of thing. And knowing that they're made in like safe working conditions and the people that are making them are earning livable wages and stuff like that. Most people want those things. And on top of that, you know, I think a lot of people really are more and more starting to pay attention to marketing, claiming sustainability, which is great. And I think a lot of people are also starting to notice more and point out more when brands are kind of claiming to be sustainable, but like maybe it's not actually the most sustainable option that they're making, and stuff like that. And so a lot of people, you know, do want, you know, compostable shipping materials, or easily recycled shipping materials, or they want the product itself to be refillable or easily recycled or composted or whatever. So it's like we all want these things, you know what I mean? We want ethical, we want sustainable, we want local, but the trade-off, if you want those things, it almost always will be more expensive. Because like looking at things like clothing manufacturing and stuff like that, if you're paying someone a livable wage in a place like North America, for instance, this is just, I'm pulling these figures out of my ass based on like the little I know about wages and stuff like that for clothing manufacturing. But like you probably would be paying one person, you know, 15 to 20 people's wages if it's being made in North America, if they're having a livable wage, because, you know, it's expensive to live in North America. And that's only one person being able to make product, you know what I mean? So if you can think about still needing to have enough workers to meet the demand of whatever your business is, and you're paying them livable wages, already that's eating into your profit margin so massively. So you have to increase your prices. Not to mention, if you are, you know, making the more ethical option around like properly sustained raw ingredients, like properly sustained cotton and properly dyed cotton and all of those kinds of things, that is more expensive. And even if, because like I feel like with the livable wage thing, there's gonna be people that are like, yeah, but there's parts of the states that it's not as expensive to live in, so like why wouldn't you just have your clothes made there? Yes, sure. If that infrastructure exists, then great, but regardless, then you're paying freight to likely ship it somewhere else because it's going to be a more central location for you to ship from. So like, let's say you were having your clothes or whatever made in like rural West Virginia. I need to check where West Virginia is on a map, hold on. Okay, sure. Most of your consumer base likely isn't gonna be saturated right around West Virginia, okay? Just like population wise. So at that point, it's like you would likely want to ship to more of like a hotspot area where there's going to be a lot of customers in that area or near that area or like in neighboring states kind of thing. But the likelihood that you're going to have like a huge amount of customers from, you know, like Kentucky and North Carolina and, oh, Virginia, there's just a Virginia. And Maryland? That's a state? Wait. The likelihood you're going to be selling massively in those areas is a little bit more slim, just again, based on population. But you will more likely want to ship to, you know, like a New York or a California or something like that, because that's going to likely be more cost effective down the road. But that freight of actually moving that product from wherever you're producing it, because it's cheaper to produce there, it might end up not evening out in the wash because you have to pay to ship it somewhere else to be then distributed, because it would be too expensive to pay to ship it out of West Virginia potentially. And then that also, here is where things start to intersect, that also could potentially be less sustainable. So it could be more sustainable for you to have your clothes made in California and also shipped out of California. So you're not having to use up energy to have the product go from here to here, where it's going to be, you know, mostly distributed around like those kind of hotspot areas. And when it comes to things like shipping materials and stuff like that, like compostable shipper bags, and even like, you know, I'm sure you guys have seen some people show in PR and stuff like that, like, this card is made from seeds, plant me and I'll grow something. Those materials, outrageously priced. I would kind of think, I would have assumed that making the more sustainable, recyclable option would be cheaper, like for all of your packaging to be easily recycled and stuff like that. Like, let's say, you know, like cardboard lipstick tubes and stuff. I would think that that would be cheaper. Not always necessarily the case. Often not necessarily the case. So it's like all of these things that people really do want to see from brands. Like, I believe that generally speaking, people do want to see more sustainable options being made. They don't necessarily want to pay for those options. Can brands make these decisions if they can't afford to absorb it, and if the consumer's not willing to pay for it through an increase in price point? You know, taking it a step back to like industry, the reason so many of those sustainable materials are more expensive, sometimes it just actually is more expensive for them to produce, but it's also because like it's not in demand enough, so they don't have the volume to be able to decrease pricing. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people specifically I'm just now realizing this correlation. I went to I didn't go to a sustainability summit, but we paid for a sustainability summit for Oryx so that we could like learn more about all these different things. And it was, I can't even describe to you how boring, but it was interesting in a way. But I do think that like when we come to this conversation around, you know, sustainability and climate change and environmental impact and all those things, there has been more and more people that have said basically like personal responsibility like doesn't matter, basically, because it's like it's the like your impact is so negligible in the grand scheme of things because Kim Kardashian takes this many flights a year in her private fucking jet, Kim Air. And like these three industries are responsible for, you know, like 90% of whatever. And so, you know, a lot of people feel that way, that like your personal contribution doesn't matter and that like industry needs to change and politics need to change and stuff like that. It's not that I can't look at that logically and be like, of course. I think for me, it's just like, I can't live like it doesn't matter. That makes me so depressed that I literally just can't live like that. Like, I have to believe, I have to feel, even if it's delusion, I have to feel like my decision matters. And I think I would argue my decisions do matter a little bit more because obviously I have a platform. So then that can cause a little bit of a ripple effect. But, you know, I've had the, would one call it a privilege? I've had the experience of being able to listen to a lot of brands behind the scenes justifications for not committing to things like honestly inclusivity and diversity, and sustainability and higher quality packaging, higher quality formulas, all that kind of stuff. Like, I've heard those justifications behind closed doors, and like it is that's not where we get sales. That's not how we get sales. That's not, our customers aren't asking for it. They don't fucking care. We're not going to pay to do it. So for me, I think because I've seen that and heard that so many times, it's harder for me to feel like personal responsibility doesn't matter, because ultimately, like even in eating plant-based and stuff like that, I think like a lot of you would probably agree that like even in the past 5 years, like 5 years ago, I would go to the grocery store and there would be like almond milk and like soy milk. Those were kind of the options. But now I go and it's like a whole, it's like cashew and almond blend, macadamia nut, hazelnut, you know, oat, soy, almond, like there's like so many different options because like obviously veganism and eating plant-based and not drinking regular milk and stuff like that has become more popular over time. So there's been more demand for it. So we've seen a noticeable change in the industry because there had to be. There was like this one dairy farm or something that like they had been a dairy farm for I don't even know how fucking long. Like it was like a family business if I recall correctly. And they switched their entire operation over to be plant-based. And to me, like that is the impact of personal responsibility. Again, I know there's gonna be people arguing with me about this. It's just like, I truly can't live in a way where it's like, I have to believe that personal responsibility makes a difference. That's all I have to say. But I was just now making the connection that I'm like, it's so interesting because anecdotally, I would say that I see people requesting things like sustainability and being made in North America, and just like those bigger asks kind of thing. I see those consistently towards smaller brands. It's like they want to see these like smaller, more local brands making those kinds of decisions. And it's interesting because it's like in an industry example, that is the equivalent of being like personal responsibility doesn't matter, because it's like these small businesses, the amount of product that they're probably pushing out the door is nothing in comparison to the likes of like a Fenty Beauty or a Kylie Cosmetics or L'Oreal or, you know, like these bigger brands. But also interestingly, I'm just really now on like the whole sustainability thing. But something that I found really interesting through doing that summit was how it's not always what would appear to be the most sustainable option that is actually the most sustainable. So there's a few examples of that kind of come to mind. And one of them is like reusable, like cotton shopping bags. Obviously everyone do their own research. Don't take my fucking word for it. I'm just a beauty guru. But I believe there was a study done where they looked into kind of like how much energy and water and all that kind of stuff it takes, and like what the environmental impact is overall of producing one of those cotton bags. And it was saying essentially that like you would have to reuse that cotton bag like an unbelievable amount of times to have it be the better option to plastic overall. And that's why a lot of people will say things like the most sustainable option is to do nothing at all. Literally. The most sustainable option is not to get an electric car, but not to have a car at all. And not to reuse a cotton shopping bag, but not to use a shopping bag at all. Just fumble around with your groceries. That's the most sustainable option. Take one for the team. And that was what a lot of the findings were through this like sustainability summit, was that like normally one would think that it's better to get raw ingredients, for instance, locally, because it's having to travel less distance and stuff like that. But they were saying that like in some instances, like the way in which they're mining materials or the way in which they're processing materials or whatever kind of thing, if it's like a smaller local company, like there's the potential that, you know, they're doing it in such an inefficient way that it actually is more sustainable to get raw ingredients from like a neighboring country or state or whatever it may be. Not always, but I just found that was really interesting, because again, it's like you kind of like when you think about sustainability and stuff like that, I feel like a lot of the times you just have these kind of like absolute truths. Like, you know, a reusable shopping bag is the better option, which like it's not always necessarily the case. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to share, just to make everyone like a little bit more depressed. We really don't know what we're doing. But to end this on a slightly more joyful note, perhaps, maybe I'll say some of the things I do like about celebrity brands. Wow, again, that's a lot of blush. I just can't stop myself. I do think it's awesome with celebrity brands that a lot of them do have the financial ability to bring certain products to the market and be really inclusive. Like obviously, you know, Fenty's a fantastic example of that. She really did, like they changed a lot about like what the industry expected of brands. So that's a very positive thing. And then I also will say that I do think that as things like sustainability become more important to just general consumers, I think we'll see more and more brands adopting more sustainable practices. And my hope is that in turn, a lot of those options will become more affordable industry-wide for, you know, smaller brands and stuff like that. And that's really it. Thanks for joining me for another rambly, long form content video. But that's everything, you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out and chatting. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section and hearing people roast me for suggesting that there's a possibility that personal responsibility may matter. I don't know. Anyways, okay, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Bye.